dark places, and possible is nothing. Here's my co-host, friend to the woodland wildlife, Mr. Jimmy Haunted.
Junebug!
Hey Jimmy, how are you?
I'm friends with all the small woodland creatures in the flora and fauna of the world. Hey Junebug.
Hey, how
Ask
you
me
doing?
How I am. Oh, I don't have anything prepared today. But, off the top of my head, I am happier than the bar-tailed godwit feeding on some bristleworms and shellfish on an Irish coastal mudflat, humming the tune from Little House on the Prairie like he's frickin' Michael Landon or something.
Very happy. Love me some Little House on the Prairie. That was good.
You know, do you remember how happy you were when you were a little kid and Pa came down and said, "Hey, tonight Pa's gonna play the fiddle for us." And they all sit around, all huddled in a little corner, and little Pa would do his little smiley dimples and play the fiddle for him, and everybody's smiling. I look now and say, "What a jerk!" Oh, here he comes again with his fiddle. Enough already. Overkill. Nobody cares. Nobody cared about that fiddle. Tell me. I'm telling you right now. That's all I want to say.
Yeah, they were easily entertained. Check it out. Here is your Nicolas Cage meltdown of the week.
It's ironic, but people like you who try to help have been torturing me, in the full sense of the word, since I was 3 years old. What do they call it? Oh yeah, observed play therapy, featuring the marathon 36-hour, can you guess the next flashcard game? So please, leave me alone and let me live some semblance of a normal life.
This is your In Dark Places news correspondent, Mr. Haunted, with some breaking news. This story comes out of Taxco, Guerrero, Mexico. Apparently, there was an alien mummy found. The military doctor, Pablo Enrique Garcia Sanchez, who leads an association named Nahui Olin, according to social networks, presented this afternoon the finding of an apparent mummy that, according to the researcher, belongs to an unknown culture that inhabited southern Mexico. According to information from some local Facebook pages, the discovery was made in some tunnels in the city of Taxco, a town famous for its silver mines and crafts. In the photographs, you can see some humanoid figures, as well as a skull that Garcia Sanchez says belongs to an alien. You can also see some carved objects with the popular figure given to aliens: big eyes, the oval head. The publication has gone viral on social networks and has unleashed all kinds of comments, from those who assure that the doctor is a serious person and that his research is real, to others who react with humorous and mocking comments. And here we'll go to the little comment section. Okay, this little mini scientist right here. There is no wear on the surface of the deck which does not concur with being an ancient mummy. Being real is super dangerous to take the object without adequate protection for both the object and the one who handles it. Being real could entail the risk of having pathogens inside that can be potentially dangerous for the beings of this planet. If they are beings from other worlds, where is some piece of their technology? A piece of alloy that would show enough but a civilization that could travel light years. All it has are wood carvings. I don't deny the existence of life in other worlds, but we are not special, and there's no reason for other civilizations to spend time in this world. Another fella says, What if it is people who were born with syndromes? And in those times, the ancients considered it an oddity, and now they say they're aliens. And then there's people that say this is just totally fake. Well, I guess we'll never know. But hopefully we'll have some breaking news in the future about this alien mummy from Taxco, Mexico. Back after this.
Jimmy, we got a guest this week. And Massey.
I believe she flew in all the way from Ireland to be with us today.
You are correct. Long distance.
Well, introduce this guest that's walking down from the In Dark Places green room as we speak.
And Massey is the author of Dark Emerald Tales. She has a paranormal group called the Irish Paranormal Investigations. Joining us all the way from Ireland, here is Anne Massey.
Holy
Hey!
mackerel, Dan!
Hey, here I am, surprise!
Fresh out of the green room.
Come sit down right over here. Oh, you know what? We should have done a what do you call it? A sponsor. Like she's eating her Wheaties back there or something. Next time. You know, Anne, we before we start with your stories, we did prepare a game for you today.
Okay.
And it's called Scary Movie Celebrity Birthdays.
Woohoo!
Hey, woohoo!
I know you're a fan of this feature. And let me tell you, it wasn't a banner week for celebrity birthdays at all. It wasn't very good. Most of the people now,
It was a good week for.
it'll say, like, this person's a TikTok star or a YouTube star. And I never heard of them before. So I did once from the old-fashioned days. Okay? So, for example, these are people that are having a birthday upcoming, and you're going to guess how old they are. Our first Scary Movie celebrity birthday is Cameron Diaz on August 30th. She's known for her roles in The Mask, There's Something About Mary, Charlie's Angels, and was the voice of Princess Fiona in the Shrek movie series. How old will Cameron Diaz be next week?
48.
Junebug?
That sounds close. I want to go with 49, just to be different.
I'd say you're both right in the ballpark. She's turning 50.
Hey.
Good job.
And she's being honest about her age. Do you ever have those ones where you're like, hang on, love, you used to be 20 years older than me, and now I'm 5 years older than you.
We caught someone doing that. One of these celebrities that we did. Like, because Jennifer went to school with Jennifer's husband went to school with the girl. She goes, no, she graduated with me. She's like 32. All right, so this guy here has a birthday on August 31st coming up. And his name is Richard Gere, known for American Gigolo, Pretty Woman, Unfaithful, and 2002's Mothman Prophecies.
I was going to say the Mothman Prophecies. That was a good movie.
How old will the American Gigolo be on August whatever?
He's an old bugger, isn't he? So I'm going to say 71.
I'll say 66.
Pick up sticks. He will be 73 years old.
Wow.
Holy mackerels. And this one here, we have to give, it's not really a scary movie, but we have to give this woman credit before it's too late. Barbara Eden.
Oh, wow.
After some early appearances in I Love Lucy, Perry Mason, Gunsmoke, and The Andy Griffith Show, she got the role of Jeannie in the TV series I Dream of Jeannie, which ran from 1965 to 1970. So this woman who was already acting before I was born, she's still alive. Barbara Eden has a birthday. Let me tell you the exact date here.
Well, she's not just well preserved.
No. Well, she's a genie. I don't know. Her birthday's coming up, though. Oh, August 23rd. Barbara Eden. Genie.
Yes.
How old?
All right, let's do some math. 92.
I was going to say 83, but that seems really young now compared. But I think you're right.
Barbara Eden will be 91 years old.
Holy cow.
I'm getting
I
good
think-
at
I think you're 3 for 3.
Very good.
this.
We're gonna stop there to keep your streak. But thank you. And that does it for Scary Movie Celebrity Birthdays.
Woo!
Good job.
Thank you. I have the worst poker face too, because when you guess, I go like this, or I can't hide my feelings.
Vegas.
And I have my son Brandon on sometimes. He's 12 now, and whenever he was just a baby, he loved Riverdance. So it comes full circle now.
I'm going to see River Dance again next week at the Gaiety Theatre in Dublin. It's my third time.
Very cool.
We just can't let this go, Junebug. How did it happen that he fell in love with Riverdance?
I don't know.
Yeah, that's actually a good question.
He loved it. He would see like the commercials and stuff come up on TV. They were doing like a tour or something, and it would play like little clips of it. And he would just raise up and start dancing. And he loved it. So we'd start finding videos on YouTube, and just he would watch them for hours at a time, just dancing all over the room.
Maybe he had a past life. He was a Riverdancer.
Could have been.
Could have been. He's Michael Flatley.
Yeah, he
You
took
know what?
to it real early.
In my past life, I was Michael Chubley. See, that's funny because flat.
Hey, hey, clear off that bit of tumbleweed that just went past your shoulder.
The crickets and tumbleweed all by myself.
But I love Riverdance actually because not only was it written by a man from Limerick, which is where I'm from in Ireland, but it delves right back into the ancient folklore of Ireland and brings it through with the history. So it's more than just dancing, like it's everything we love.
You know, I have a question. That you brought up Limerick and Ireland. I just want your theory on this. Now, I looked up how big Ireland is in comparison to United States. They said you could fit 140 Irelands in the United States. Why is Ireland so haunted in that little space?
Because
comparatively,
it's not about geography, it's about history, and it's about the inhabitants. We had inhabitants going back over a much longer period over all of Ireland, whereas in the US it was pocketed.
and you know what's funny?
Size isn't everything.
Hey, it's a PG program. No, really. No. You know what's funny is that like when one of my friends go to a house to investigate, and they're like, "Well, this house is over 100 years old." So like 100, you have places thousands of years old.
Very cool.
That's it, exactly. I have a friend from up the north, Andy, and when he gets in a row online with somebody from America, he always goes, "I'm sitting in a chair that's older than your country."
Yeah, over here we talk about a house that was built like in the 70s or something, like it's super old, but It's nothing.
But what I do believe in is layers of haunting, as you have layers of history. Layers. Just because you might have a new house, but it might be built where there was a castle, and before that there was a Viking settlement, and before, a prime example of that is the Hellfire Club, because because of course it was a Viking settlement. It was home to druids. It did have people living on it normally. It then lent itself to William Conley, who then built his hunting lodge, who then sold it on, and thus the Hell Club came into being. But you've got all those layers. So when I go and investigate there, I don't just call out to the members of the Hellfire Club. I'll be calling out to the ancient druids. I'll be calling out to the Vikings. And you get more activity in the woodland that surrounds the Hellfire Club than you do in the Hellfire Club itself. It does help that the estate that it's a part of, Massey's estate, is actually from my ancestors. The guy that had it was Sheriff of Limerick, a direct descendant of which I am, and he married into the White family and got the land and created Massey's estate.
You know what my ancestors did? Nothing!
I was going to say breed raccoons.
They gave me grief. Do you have raccoons in Ireland?
Not that I'm aware of. We have a stray rabbit that keeps calling.
I guess a lot of countries are looking at my video. We don't have raccoons. They don't have
Yeah,
them.
you don't. I know, it's strange. They're cute.
And I did specifically look up birds that were indigenous to Ireland for my Happier Than segment today.
Oh,
So that
very good.
So whatever creature I mentioned.
Actually, because I have this up here, but I show you here. See that? That is Birds of Ireland, Facts, Folklore and History.
What a quinky dink. I think I talked about the bar-tailed something? Yeah.
I haven't finished reading that one, and funnily enough, I didn't know about that book's existence, Birds of Ireland, Facts, Folklore and History by Glenn Anderson.
I look forward to you reading that and sharing it with me.
It's my Italian friend. She's awesome. She actually got it. She's the only ginger Italian that I know. She looks Irish.
Very rare breed.
Very rare breed, like the birds. So, and she's a bird nut. She told me about it, and it's just full of amazing folklore connected to the birds. Ornamentancy, as we call it, and you know how they're used as omens in Irish folklore. And if you have one tapping on the window, you're in trouble.
Mine's called it was called the bar-tailed godwit. So we'll look forward to that one.
Yeah.
So there's birds sending terrible omens.
Yes. And the banshee can turn herself into a raven as needs be. And
that was on my list of questions.
Mine too.
Yeah. Could you tell us if no one ever heard of a banshee, what's a banshee?
A banshee is an harbinger of death. She is either linked to, she goes back to the days of the fairies and the goddesses and the demigods, and kind of as a descendant from that, where she is either attached to a particular family. Traditionally, it's the families that start O's and Max. So my mum is O'Connor, and she grew up hearing the banshee when her relatives would pass out in the country up the road there. But she can also be malevolent, and you know she's not like a tied agent. If the mood takes her, she will be upon you. She takes the form to trick people, sometimes as a beautiful woman, sometimes as an old washerwoman, but primarily she'd be a hag, skeletal with the long white, wild hair and wild eyes and the long nails like you'd expect hags to look. And if you hear the scream, you're okay. It's if you see her that you're in trouble. And if you see a silver comb on the floor, never pick it up because that's her law. Once you've picked it up and touched it, she has your soul.
What is this silver what?
Comb for your hair.
Comb.
Mm.
You know what? I think I found a silver comb before.
That explains so much.
This is the answer to all my problems.
So, how did you get into all this stuff, Ann?
Well, growing up and being back and forth between here and where I was schooled in England, just being told, they weren't told the stories. The ghost stuff was never told. Oh, there's this wild tale of this, or my grandmother when she died, I heard the banshee, and they're told as accounts. This happened to me. I had that, like my mum. One of the first things I remember, she should have probably been telling me this stuff when I was 4 or 5 years old, but she did, and I've been in it every time, ever since. And she'd tell me the Cork Road, just literally a mile and a half away from me now. She and her friend were walking back. They'd been to the cinema, walking back, and as you can imagine, no street lights, no footpaths. It's proper kind of rural, and the houses were very far apart. And they were walking along, and they saw a man with a stick, an old fella, and he kind of docked his cap at them. And they said hello. Didn't recognise him, assumed he was visiting whatever occupant of the house. Walking further up, they could hear the tap, tap, tap of his stick behind them. And there he was in front of them at the next gate. And they ran like the wind they only had one more house to go, into the friend's house, dragged the brother out of bed, went up and down the street on his bicycle, and there was absolutely nobody there. And she has never wavered from that particular story or account, and the gate that she referred to is still there. So to me, it became a way of life rather than something I got into. And it did help that the time I did live over in Kent in England, we lived in a really, really spooky Victorian mansion that Scooby-Doo would be proud of.
That's what I was going to ask. Did you have any experience as a child growing up?
Yeah. I even saw my grandmother the footpath, dressed very smartly, wearing a hat. I can still picture it now, wearing a smart hat as if she was dressed for going to church or something. And I'd run in and said that I'd seen her. And my parents were looking at me in shock because the news had come through that she'd passed away. And I described an outfit, and it's one that they were aware of, but it was a time she'd worn it way before I was born, and I'd never seen it. So make of that what you will. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's gone on from there. Whenever a family member passes, something comes through. Even after my dad had passed away, my mum and the pair of us sat there. I was 16 at the time, and there was this fruit bowl, and sitting in it were some oranges, and they were firmly ensconced in this bowl, and it was underneath an award thing he'd got from his job. And we were talking about him and about that particular job, and the orange just started spinning in the bowl, lifted out of the bowl and rolled across the living room. And the pair of us just looked at each other and were like, it's one of those things where you think you've gone crazy, but for the fact there was somebody else there to witness it with you. And I've got other family members that even kind of more in tune with it than I am, and you know, they get visits in dreams and things like that. So
You write for a lot of different websites, books, and formats. Did you ever write that story up yet?
no,
Because,
I haven't actually.
because I want to name that one The Case of the Spinning Orange.
I like it,
Good title.
or A Clockwork Orange.
And
Hey.
in Dark Places first, Junebug, I believe that was the first time the word ensconced was ever used in your program.
I think so.
Thank you, Ann.
And probably the last.
Yeah. You just said it totally naturally, too. Like, whoa!
I know big words.
I didn't know that one.
Me and Jimmy did a show a couple months ago on like the colors of the paranormal. I was seeing on your blog about the Black Hag. Can you tell us about that?
Literally just up the road again. Limerick is amazing for fantastic locations. It's got such a rich and bloody history. You know, you couldn't ask for more. And it's sort of farmland, and they're the most unassuming farmers you've ever met. Like if you ring them or you go up there, you say, "Can we go into the abbey?" Sure, yeah, you're grand. Off you go. And we done an investigation in there. It's from the road, it looks like nothing, like a couple of walls or whatever, and you go in and it's this like little labyrinth of different old rooms of the abbey, and you've got the altar and the cells that the nuns used to stay in, and there's two particular things attached to it. The first is that part of the order, one of the nuns turned to the dark side, to throw in a bit of Star Wars there for you, Junebug. And she began to worship Satan and perform the black arts. And that would involve, there were rumours about, you know, baby sacrifice and how she would go into the village and basically sell herself off because all that helped. Sexual activity helped thrive the black arts and so on. And it got to the point where the nuns abandoned the place, and she just lived on. No one actually knows what happened to her. But when they were actually doing excavations, they did find baby bones in the foundations of the abbey. They had an archaeological dig, and they did actually find the remains of a baby, and it was not buried anywhere of religious significance, shall we say. And the other one is the Countess. They were down escaping. There was a fierce rivalry between the clans, and as her and her husband were riding away, she took an arrow to the thigh and was obviously bleeding profusely and getting paler and paler. And he stopped at the abbey and for sanctuary, but then saw that his wife had died, and they hastily buried her in a hole beneath the altar, and he carried on his way, except for the fact she wasn't dead. And they realized after some time that they were just hearing of these nuns, reckon they could hear this screaming and what have you going on for months, and they couldn't find the source of it. And they finally kind of tracked it towards the altar, and when they kind of removed the stones, they found scratch marks on the stones, and the woman's hands were broken and bloody from trying to dig her way out. And to this day, you can hear her scream.
Now, Ann, did you write this story up yet?
Yes.
Okay, was when she turned to the dark side?
Yeah, I
would
would write it again.
Write it again, and I want you to call it Darth's Sister.
Duh. sister of the dark side.
There was a story here. I talked about it on the show before. Over toward Pikeville, Kentucky. It's about 30 miles away from here. And back in like the early 1900s, I think it was, a man had lost his wife. She came down with a sickness and went into a coma, and the doctor pronounced her dead. And they buried her, and like it was like some kind of a widespread thing all throughout Pikeville, and people started waking up. They were going into these comas, and they would wake up after a few days. And then the guy was like, "Oh man, maybe she wasn't dead." So they dug her up, and there was like claw marks on top of her coffin and stuff where she'd been trying to get out. Creepy.
Well, that's where the Irish wake came from. You all know about the Irish wake.
I don't.
Because, well, it's a big thing here. And funnily enough, one of the things they used to do, and this is where the Banshee thing came down, to protect the soul of the departed, women were hired as professional keeners to wail harmoniously like a banshee over the deceased, kind of protect their soul. But the reason they're called wakes is because they had a habit of drinking out of lead and pewter tankards, which over time would poison them, and they'd go into a coma-like state. So people would sit up all night just waiting to see if they'd come awake, and if they didn't, they'd bury them and come back and carry on drinking.
And that's where we got the word wake.
Waiting to see if they wake up.
Thank you.
Wow, I did not know that.
And you also have, there's so many things to do with burials and funerals here. Like, for example, back in the day, if you were a man, like a warrior or highest of your clan, you'd actually be buried standing up.
Wow.
True story. Yeah.
I just want to lay down after all that.
So I shouldn't talk to you about the deviant burials and Ireland having the vampires and stuff long before the likes of Romania had their stories.
I want to hear about the vampires.
Well, though again, you find these things out in archaeological digs. There was a team, I think at the university, probably was University of Sligo, because the place itself was Roscommon, they're kind of side by side, and they were looking to find the original foundations of a church that was on a farm. And the farm's off you go kind of thing. And they found it, and they got the edge and the boundary, and they realised where the boundary was for the cemetery and everything. And then they realised there was some graves outside the boundaries, so they would have been on unconsecrated ground. Which, if you know anything about Ireland being fairly backward, if you committed suicide or if you were a baby that wasn't baptized or anything like that, you weren't allowed to be buried in hallowed ground. You would be buried outside the walls of the churchyard or the cemetery. So they figured it was something like that, uncovered the bodies, found, I think it was at least 3 where they were unrelated. They done the checks, but they had, each one of them had their legs and arms broken and folded in, with a great heavy boulder where the torso is, and a stone in the mouth. The reason being is at that time in the 8th century, they believed that the mouth was actually the portal to the soul, and by putting the stone in the mouth, it stopped the spirit returning to body, and by putting the boulder on and breaking the arms and legs, the undead could not walk the earth.
Oh,
Isn't it great when history is better than folklore?
it's real life.
It's real life. Well, not for the person in the ground. That was real death.
I just got a notification that my battery's low, and I had it charging for a whole week. So in case I just disappear.
We love our cryptids here on the show. We talk about cryptids all the time. Do you have any kind of like dogman over in Ireland?
Oh, we have many bits and pieces. We like a serpent. We do like a serpent. We have Scattery Island, where the serpent was driven away after basically massacring the people that were on it and terrorizing them. We have a mermaid in County Clare, who was murdered by a man that wanted her and couldn't have her. And as a result, now she bled out in the lake, and every year that lake turns bright red. And they say that's her reminding everyone of what happened to her. We have, gosh, what else have we got now? We have, put me on the spot now. Do you know one of those things where your brain just goes blank? We had,
Oh yeah,
we've got shucks, of course, the black dogs. That we have one that goes around the base of St Colman's Cathedral in Cove in County Cork, which is home to Spike Island and where Titanic last set sail, and he's guarding those within the crypt there. We have others in the country that are guarding lost treasure. We have every variation from beaver-like to dog-like creature. I mean, there is a book to write, which I still have on my list to do, of the I looked into it once, and there's something like 200 or 300 different variations of cryptids, away from the fairy folk and everything else. So it's crazy. And then we have the interesting ones that are better again, like you have your puka, which is of the what we call the unseelie court from the fairies, which is a shape-shifting mischievous creature that likes to go around as a horse with glowing red eyes, but will actually make your nightmares become a waking reality. And we have a witch that comes back now as half horse, half witch. So yeah, we have more than our fair share. If you think about it in terms of square footage, we have way more than we should.
it's the history.
It's the history.
I have a quick comment. I remember about a year or two back, there was a story, and it was a true story. It was supposedly it was in the newspapers and everything. In Ireland, this farmer claimed that a leprechaun went onto his farm, knocked him out with a garden implement, tied him up in the farmhouse. PG was amorous with him, and it took him a day or two to. I don't know if his wife discovered him in there or whatever. He went to the hospital and they have reports and everything that something actually happened to him. Do you remember that story at all?
I don't, but it does sound like there's particularly, they're not just leprechauns. They each have their own names and variations and stuff. And that one sounds very much like the Fardarig, which is the red man who is like the puka, likes to make people live a waking nightmare. And it could be that the farmer at some point have hacked him off or damaged a fairy tree or something along those lines.
This is real life.
Yeah, and that sounds like the kind of thing you do. And people think it's true, but the last official historically recorded leprechaun sighting was 5 miles from here in a place at the top of a hill. In 1958, official recorded leprechaun sighting in Ireland was as recent as 1958.
It was ensconced in 1958, Junebug.
It was firmly ensconced.
The second time this.
And do you know we have found here and documented in the Vatican archives? No.
Holy mackerels.
Ensconce that.
Ensconce. You wrote a beautiful article about Malachi Martin. It was on Spooky Isles or
both. I done it for both Dark
Yeah.
Tales and Spooky
And-
Isles.
is he a very, I don't know how to say it, popular there, or is it just for the people who are in the know with that kind of thing?
He's actually, do you know that, to me, it's a credit to the man that he's not that well known. You'd say, especially when you go down to Kerry and Ballylongford and everything else, they'd know the family and they'd know where people are buried and everything else. And yes, he went away to become a priest. And they wouldn't have really, you see, back in those times, that the Irish should be afraid to talk about that kind of thing for fear of damnation by the community and the church. So it's never kind of widely talked about. And it's only in recent years that the church has come out and said, look, we need help with these kind of things going on. And of course, as you know yourself, he spent so much time in Europe and in America. And, you know, Ireland, up until, I suppose, the 90s, it would have been quite insular. You know, it wouldn't really be taking that much notice of what was going on around the world, that the methods of passing on information weren't there. And, you know, there was, you know, even up to kind of my parents' generation. And to be honest, some of my generation still would be, you know, you can't talk about the Vatican, you can't, you know, make accusations or this or that or the other. So it would be a quiet thing. So those of us in the know and in the field would be aware of him, but not as a general population thing.
Thank you.
But what a man. And you've got to come over, Jimmy, and visit where he's from. It's one of the most beautiful parts of Ireland.
I want to. It's on my bucket.
When I was in college, I had a teacher he was also a pastor of a church, and he would come in and he would teach, I think it was like Tuesday nights or something. We only had him like once a week. And he came in one week and he looked out of it, his hair just everywhere and stuff. We're like, what's going on with him? And he said, I apologize. I was up all night conducting an exorcism. And
Awesome.
we just like all lit up and like all half asleep in the class and everything. We're like, yes, that's great. And like over time, he had become possessed himself. He came in, he like got addicted to painkillers and stuff, and was like coming in like half asleep and everything. And then after that, and he was just like a totally different person after he did the exorcism.
But that's kind of how it goes, isn't it, Jimmy? If you do it long enough, it does have an impact. It did on Father Martin, didn't it? You know, it took its toll.
That's what they say, and let's see, a lot of us got a doozy afterwards.
The scary stuff.
That's all I'll say about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people say that's not real, but it's 100% real.
I think, you know, that people will be more understanding and more almost respectful of not only the paranormal field, but also of the church and everything, if they were taught these things in school, if they were made aware that these things happen, you know, rather than fairy stories out of a big book. You know, the fact of how it does impact on life. And I think there'd be, and to be honest, you know, you'd wonder would the world be in half the state it was.
I was just telling somebody today, the lady at the bank, I said the things they taught us in school were so unnecessary. Like teach us how to balance a checkbook and how to manage your money and about exorcisms and fairies, not about the life of a woodchuck.
No, yeah, exactly. Although the woodchuck, it's a bit harsh. Woodchuck does the best he can. You know?
He's just doing the best he can to try to get through life.
Yeah. Yeah. Hanging on by a thread or a twig. Yeah.
So it's all
Oh,
it's good.
I was telling Brandon that one day we homeschool him because schools are so crazy here. But I was telling him that one night, like we were going through his homework, and it was something ridiculous. And I said, you're never going to use any of this junk in life.
Do you know, everyone keeps going, when am I going to use pie? When am I going to use pie? And I go, I hate to tell you this, but I had a job where I had to use pie. Not eat pie, Jimmy. That's very
You
different.
used. Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I had to use the 3.1. I had to use algebra and
That's
pie.
interesting. I never used the Pythagorean theorem ever. And I spent months on that.
Waste.
Anyway.
Could have been learning more about the Fibonacci sequence or something.
Well, I know some of the fears that you have, Anne.
Go on.
The Munchkins.
Yes.
The Oompa Loompas.
Oh no. Yes.
And I have the same ones.
Oh. I like everyone else is like, oh, the Wizard of Oz, the witch, the flying monkeys. I was like, forget them. The
Those little
Munchkins are evil. The house
Little-
should have landed on them, man. Oh, they're awful. And the
We should write a sequel where
where you just an estate on them.
we vanquish the Munchkins and ensconce them in a magic globe and then send it to outer space.
Send it to outer space. Like it's Superman.
Send them out.
Zod came out and everything. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
And put the Oompa Loompas in. And put in Alien Ant Farm for making Oompa Loompas as part of their video.
Screw them too.
Yeah. Send the clowns.
I work in a grocery store over here, and there's a girl that works in our cafeteria over in the kitchen. Every time she walks by, I think she looks like an Oompa Loompa. So you would hate her.
Oh no!
Is it the old fake tan job? Is it?
Yeah.
It's a whole. You know who they are? They're all. I can't even say the word. Makes me feel saying it. The what we call it? The OLs. The OLs. There's like a whole. They're like a cult now, aren't they? You see them. The young girls that are orange with the dark hair and everything. They all want to be. You know.
I don't know. Oompa Loompas.
Yes. And some of them like to make themselves up like clowns, which I find terrifying.
Me too.
Yeah, it's not nice.
There was a string of cases over here where people were dressing up like clowns and just hanging out in people's yards and stuff. And Jimmy covered it on his show a couple years ago, but it's kind of died down over here now. Did y'all ever have anything like that over there? Like people just hanging out on the street corners and stuff, dressed up like clowns?
They'd try it once and someone would take a hole to the back of their head and then do it again. Yeah. It's like this is such a no-nonsense country. Like
they don't have patience for that.
Yeah, we're just just get away with your rubbish now. Get away with the crap. Go on, go and do something useful. Yeah. Yeah, that's why you don't have half the damn. You see, people are given too much attention, I think, in some places like in the US. Here, it's like not a blind bit of notice. Do you know, you could have every TikToker going down the street and everyone would just turn their chairs around and carry on talking. Like, you know, that's nothing to you, Jimmy.
I think I belong there.
We actually have you. We have you on a big TikTok screen in the middle of our square.
Yeah, I'm not impressed by those TikTok. I'm on your square?
Yeah.
I gotta come visit.
It may turn out that it will float into space and float off or something, so you need to be careful.
Then I could be amongst the Oompa Loompas and Munchkins.
Yeah. Until someone releases you, and then Super Ann rescues.
Thanks.
You see that a lot
And
anymore, like
I'll ensconce you all.
the TikTokers and the YouTubers and stuff like that are more popular than actual celebrities now. It's weird.
That's what I'm saying. I'm looking up the celebrity birthdays. They're all TikTok and YouTube personalities. One kid was 4 years old. He's a celebrity.
It's like you do that. You're scrolling through the news, and then you'll see, oh, so and so's died. You're like, oh, I don't know them. You click on it, and they'll go YouTube, and I'm like, no, moving on. Yeah, it's Andy Warhol had a point, really, didn't he?
Is it 15 minutes? Was it?
Yeah, everyone wants 15 minutes of fame.
Yeah. No thanks.
No.
Do you have any kind of
Jimmy.
Do you have any kind of conferences or anything like that coming up here in the near future?
What have we got now? Got a few paranormal investigations set up over here. We've got a couple to go over to do in the UK. What do we do? I'm actually looking to go into hiding for this Halloween, because I have spent every Halloween for the last however many years working stuff, and I never get to enjoy Halloween. So we were even asked to go and do an investigation as part of a big festival, kind of just outside of Dublin, and it's like, no, we want to actually enjoy it this year. I'm hoping to hit the US in 23 and come and annoy Jimmy, and maybe come down to Kentucky and go exploring.
What are your pages like for like so people could find you on Twitter and all that stuff?
You'll find me if you put in Dark Emerald or Anne Massey. I kind of come up. And Irish Paranormal Investigations is our group, and of course SpookyIsles.com is where you come for everything you want to know about.
Lots of good stories on there.
Oh yeah, we cover everything, the British Isles and like Northern Ireland and the south of Ireland, everything from folklore, horror.
I saw some UFO
ghosties.
stuff on there.
I've covered a lot of UFO stuff.
Dodleston messages.
Yeah. The UFO stuff's brilliant.
SpookyIsles.com.
Yes.
Thank you.
Have there been any big recent UFO flaps and stuff of just mass sightings over there?
We've had because I'm right by Shannon Airport, so we've had a lot of instances where like kind of BA and Aer Lingus pilots and stuff have seen plenty of unexplained things, and it's great to hear the talk over the radio where you hear them all coming in and reporting the same things. There are certain parts of Ireland like Wicklow and out that way that would get more sightings. And then there was a hilarious one. There was a load of people, was it in the 50s and 60s, in County Monaghan. There were tons of reports flying into all the local Garda stations or police stations, where people were seeing these things floating in the sky like flying saucer, and it all seemed to be coming from over the Castle Leslie estate. And when they got there, it turned out Sir Leslie was basically he was making a low budget sci-fi film with, I think, Patrick Moore was even in it as a guest, and that's what it was. But there's been plenty of unexplained stuff as well. So I mean, when you've got the big skies above us, because obviously we're not, unless you're in Dublin City or Cork City, we don't have the light pollution, so we're straight up to the stars, and you've got that above you, and you've got the thousands and thousands and thousands of years of history and burials below you. bang, it's all gonna connect.
Me and Jimmy, we got to get over there sometime. That would be great.
Yeah, it's got to be a Junebug and Jimmy road trip.
Yeah.
Actually, I wouldn't do it by road because you might get wet.
Hey, that sounds like a new sitcom, Jimmy and Junebug.
Really would turn out to be a sitcom, to be honest with you. But yeah, it doesn't matter what you're into as far as the supernatural goes. There's something for everybody here. You know, from the Giant's Causeway down to the farthest reaches of the ghosts of those that didn't survive the Lusitania, and it's just, you could talk about it and write about it. I could, if I was never to sleep and just write about these, I'd need to be 1,000 years old before I'd finish, I'd say.
Zooks.
Yoinks!
Egads.
Ensconced!
Yeah, I'd have to say this is probably a world record for any podcast or show.
Yeah, we got
We're
it.
ensconced. So we won something anyway.
Congratulations.
We will be permanently ensconced in the Guinness Book of World Records.
And your prize, Jimmy, is a raccoon.
Thank you.
Well, and we can't thank you enough for joining us here today. This has been great.
The word I'd call it is surreal, but yeah, great as well. It's been brilliant.
Thank you.
Yes.
It's very late there.
It's what is it? It's 6:15 in the evening.
Holy
It's past
mackerel.
It's past my bedtime.
Okay. Well, I hope the werewolves and gnomes and pixies and aliens and black shucks don't get you tonight. That's all I'm saying.
As my mother would say, they might be taking you in, but they wouldn't be long bringing you back.
Aw, she's adorable.
And we definitely got to do it again sometime. This has been a lot of fun.
Oh yeah.
Thank you, Ann.
Yeah. Thanks a million.
And that'll do it for this week's show. We'll see you again next week. God
Thanks,
bless you.
fellas.
Welcome to In Dark Places. Impossible is nothing. Here is my co-host, friend of the woodland wildlife,